Willie Colon, the ex-Pittsburgh Steeler, said he's heard some very disheartening stories about Mike Tomlin in the locker room. Let's jump into the article. Willie Colon heard disheartening stories out of the Steelers locker room, thinks team culture has worsened. The standard is the standard for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Unfortunately, it's felt like the last few years have muddied what that standard actually is. It used to mean competing for championships. Lately, the Steelers have struggled to even win a playoff game, not accomplishing that feat since 2016. Some people believe that the Steelers' way has lost much of its luster, including Willie Colon. I was at the Super Bowl, and I ran into a lot of my old teammates because everybody was kind of whoring themselves around media row and trying to shake hands, kiss babies type thing, and find a door so they can walk through with their media career. The former Steelers offensive lineman said recently on the Ryan Russillo podcast. We were talking about the culture of the Steelers. At one point, it meant something, and now it feels like it's something that you just say, and it doesn't have as much weight as it once did. Some of the stories I was hearing coming out of the locker room was interesting. Colon played for the Steelers from 2006 to 2012, so he was part of the 2 Super Bowl appearances. He's got direct experience with them during the height of their recent success. It sounds like he thinks the team's mentality has changed since then. The standard may no longer be the standard. Colon also alludes to hearing some interesting stories coming out of the Steelers locker room this year. He's not the first person to say that either. Earlier this year, Baltimore Ravens corner Marlon Humphrey hinted that he was hearing similar things. I got the feeling that the old way and what I was brought into doesn't exist anymore, Colon said. That was disheartening. It sounds like what Colon was hearing isn't good. Now, it's totally unclear what exactly that was. However, it wouldn't be surprising to hear the Steelers had issues last year. Look at how they finished the season. Come on. We all know what this is. I mean, Willie doesn't have to come out and give detail for detail, but we already know what it is. It's George Pickens doing whatever he wants and Mike Tomlin giving him participation trophies instead of handing out severe discipline. And he's not the only one. Cam Sutton, the entire year, he did whatever he wanted. The guy got signed after beating up his wife and throwing her down a flight of stairs. He was suspended the first 4 games of the season. He finally steps on the field, and he's in outer space doing whatever he wants on any assignment, like blitzing when he felt like it, dropping back into coverage when he's supposed to blitz. You have 50 other grown professionals in a locker room. You don't think they look at Mike Tomlin like and get annoyed and are pissed off? Especially when you're losing. It's one thing when you're winning and guys are acting like jerks and idiots and morons. You can kind of put up with it a little bit more and have a little bit more patience because you're winning. When you go on a 5-game losing streak to end the year and George Pickens is showing up, an hour late for a game or not showing up for practices during the week. I say this all the time. George Pickens is so lucky that he plays in this era. See, the reason why all these wide receivers got all this mouth on them and act the way they do is because they don't get hit anymore. They wouldn't act like this if Ronnie Lott was around back in the day patrolling the middle of the field where you could really hit people, where you could really, you could go to the 50-yard line before the game as Ronnie Lott and tell a clown like George Pickens, make sure you act up today, make sure you dance today, because you dance one time, I'm going to take your head off. And it was legal. Now you can't even sneeze on these ballerinas. So this just enables their personality and all their diva traits. The little woman inside George Pickens comes out every week. Beanie Bishop should have been the starter over Cam Sutton anyway. Every time he stepped on the field, he made the most out of his opportunities. He's professional. He's going to be where he's told to be. When you tell him to blitz, he's going to blitz. If you tell him to play zone, he's going to play zone. If you tell him to play man coverage, that's what he's going to do. Cam Sutton, the entire year, just like George Pickens, did whatever the hell that he wanted to do, and guess what Mike Tomlin did about it? Absolutely nothing. Put him right back there on the field the next series, the next game. If Mike Tomlin likes you, it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to play and you're going to get paid. And if you're a professional, if you don't think that causes the locker room internal chaos and just a lot of disdain in the locker room and a lot of tension, I don't know what to tell you. It does. When, first of all, it's not that everybody else is getting held to a higher standard. They're just professional and less maintenance, and they don't need to be told to do anything. You don't need to tell Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, or Cam Hayward, hey, you need to be on time. You need to show up for film study. You need to get in the weight room. You need to go for treatment when you're injured. You don't need to tell those guys those types of things. They take it upon themselves. But when you have players like George Pickens, who is just, he's not a good person. He's not a good person whatsoever. I don't want to hear he doesn't get in trouble off the field. We're not talking about criminality. We're talking about football, and in football circles, George Pickens is a horrible human being. It's all about George 24/7. So the rest of the team, they start to get this anger and resentment towards Mike Tomlin because, Mike Tomlin will stand in front of the team. I'm super competitive. I'm a competitor. I'm all about discipline, and I'm about this, and I'm about that. And then you got guys like George Pickens and Cam Sutton in the locker room, and they just run wild and do whatever they want. So you look at Mike Tomlin funny like you're an effing clown, and that's what the players think. They're not going to say it to the media. They're going to come out and say, we like Mike Tomlin. He does a great job, blah, blah. They're going to say all the things they're supposed to say. But meanwhile, they have this deep resentment towards him because they know he's full of you-know-what. And there was an article the other day that was written about Cam Hayward. When the Steelers went on their 5-game losing streak, a player asked a dumb question, and Cam jumped all over him. Well, here's my message to Cam, and I'm a forever Cam guy. I love Cam Hayward. Hey, Cam, if that guy who you jumped all over for asking a dumb question wasn't George Pickens, then you're a coward. You're a coward. You know why, Cam? Because the only guy who you should be jumping down their throat is George Pickens and Cam Sutton. And you know why? Because they think they can do whatever they want, and it's about them and not the team. So if you have leadership that picks on the third-string guy, the third-string offensive tackle, or the new guy that's just asking a question because he's confused about something, but you don't have a problem with George Pickens, then you're not a leader, Cam. You're not a leader at all. Because a guy like George Pickens, if you had Greg Lloyd in the locker room or the real Blitzburg with Kevin Green and LaVon Kirkland and all those guys, Chad Brown and Rod Woodson, never mind Jack Lambert and Mean Joe Green, never mind that era, a punk like George Pickens would get put in his place in 2 seconds. But he never gets put in his place. You know why? Because that's today's era of football. That's today's so-called leaders. They're a bunch of clowns. They'll jump down the fourth-string guy's throat who asked a question that's never going to play. But the guy that's destroying your whole effing team, you'll say good things about. Well, GP, it's like Russell Wilson. GP, the talent is there. They got to treat him like a 5-year-old instead of telling him, listen, shut the F up, get in the effing huddle, and guess what? If you don't want to come on time like everybody else and be a professional, then get the F out of here. And if he wants to get physical, then get physical with him. This new day and age makes me sick. It really does. The new day and age of football is absolutely sickening. Because the players, I'm not saying that they don't care, but you have all these different political reasons why certain guys don't want to step up and be leaders. A lot of it has to do with, a lot of these things have nothing to do with football. A lot of it is politics. A lot of it's racial. If I'm on a team, I don't give a F what color you are. If you're not about winning, F you. I don't care who you are. If you think that on a team, that one person is going to hold us all hostage because he doesn't know the game plan, he's not showing up. We're supposed to play at 1 o'clock and he shows up at 1:30 and he thinks it's funny and he's making a joke out of it. This isn't about me, but I guarantee you, me and that player would be rumbling in the locker room. fists would be flying. See, today's new, do that with Greg Lloyd and see what would happen to you, George. You're a little media queen. Listen, I've had George Pickens send me messages from his burner account because he doesn't like the things I say about him. It's hysterical. Hey, George, if you watch this video, let's do a Skype call. We'll talk about your behavior because obviously you need somebody to tell you to shut the F up and babysit you. See, George, if I was babysitting you last year, you would have got the money that they gave DK Metcalf because I would have put you in line all season reminding you have a contract hanging over your head. But instead, you know what George Pickens is going to get? He's going to get a 1-year deal for $12 million instead of a 3-year deal for $106 million. They're not going to trade him this year. The Steelers are not going to trade George Pickens. He's not going anywhere because they feel like they can win now. He's going to get a 1-year deal for $12 million. Then next year they're going to tell him to take a hike and take a walk. And you know why? It's not that the Steelers didn't want to give George Pickens DK Metcalf money. They wanted to give him that money. But George Pickens doesn't give a F. He doesn't care. He just does whatever he wants to do. Yeah, I don't care about y'all. I'll do whatever I want. You need me more than I need you. F you. I don't care if I sink my own battleship. And that's exactly what he did. And you know what's going to happen this year? This is exactly what is going to happen this year. As the dust settles and George gets some clarity, it becomes more and more obvious to him how much money DK Metcalf really got. Like when it really sinks in and he starts thinking to himself, I only got 1 year, $12 million. You paid this guy 3 years, $106 million, $70 million guaranteed. And then at the end of the year, you're shipping me out of here. This year, if you thought last year was bad, this year is going to be a total disaster with George Pickens. And especially when the Steelers start losing. So you're going to have the losing compounded with he didn't get his money because it's his fault. Then compounded with he knows he's only being there. George Pickens is only going to be there for 1 year. You know what? I'm not going to say this is going to cost Mike Tomlin his job because Art Rooney is absolutely in love with Mike Tomlin and Mike Tomlin can do whatever he wants and not get fired. But any other situation where this went on, the coach would have been fired because of George Pickens. It's not going to happen to Tomlin. Because I do believe, in a way, even though we're having all these internal problems with George Pickens, and I mean, I know Cam Sutton is gone, I think the pieces, all the other pieces, we're starting to get the right pieces. And the only thing that we're missing is a quarterback and a good game plan, and we're not too far off. So, with Mason Rudolph as the quarterback this year, if the Steelers go 10-6, 10-7 or 11-6, that's considered a super successful year with Mason Rudolph. If he wins the playoff game, forget it. You're going to hear that Mike Tomlin is the greatest coach to ever live. But I feel that no matter what happens this year, Mike Tomlin almost has a built-in excuse again to keep his job because the Steelers are going into the season without a quarterback that's considered a franchise quarterback. Any other situation, any other owner, a guy like George Pickens taking your entire team hostage, the coach would have been fired. This is Mike Tomlin. He thinks he can fix these guys. He can't fix them. He's shown a track record that he cannot fix players like George Pickens. It's time to move on from George Pickens. Let's keep to the plan. Stick to the plan. Ibuka, round 1 in the draft. Your next pick should be a cornerback. The 2 picks after that should be defensive linemen. Fine, have George around this year. Get what you can out of him, and it's time to say goodbye at the end of the season.